Today, we will go over the latest updates in Enterprise Reporter, take a look at the AD Modernization Pack, and highlight some of the new features recently added. With that, I'll hand it over to Neil.
Good afternoon. My name is Neil Belfour. I'm one of the solution architects at Quest Software. Today we're going to talk about what's new in Enterprise Reporter 3.5.2 and AD modernization. Today we're going to talk about Enterprise Reporter and some of the new updated features within the application. But we're also going to talk a little bit about how Enterprise Reporter works. Now, when talking about Enterprise Reporter is a multi-platformed reporting application. The current version is 3.5.2. It was released a few weeks ago today. And we're going to mention what is new within version 3.5.2. I did mention a little bit the AD modernization pack. Well, when it comes to configuring Enterprise Reporter, you're going to notice a couple of new features in it, or even new security measures that are in it. And I wanted to touch upon that for people that have not upgraded yet or will look to upgrade. In the Configuration Manage console, you'll notice when configuring for your tenant, you will see a few things here. Now, if I go to Manage the Tenant application, you will see Register and Register certificate status. So Exchange Online and Microsoft Teams is now using certificates for this. I always recommend reconfiguring all modules or all web apps when getting ready to upgrade. Once again, I'm not going to talk too much here about this console. I really want to talk a little bit more about some of the features, but I do like to mention a little bit the way Enterprise Reporter works. Enterprise Reporter works using clustering technology, and by that, we use services, node services. Those node services are deployed to member servers within your infrastructure. Those member servers now host a service. Those services are what's responsible for discovering the platforms that you're asking it to discover. Yes, you can have multiple nodes in a single cluster to load balance and fault tolerant, and even help with performance when doing discoveries. What you're discovering is here, the managed discoveries, and you can see the way I have this set up. I do have two separate clusters, one for my on-prem, one for my Office 365. The platforms that we currently cover from an on-prem standpoint is Active Directory, Computer Discoveries, Microsoft SQL, NTFS, and even file storage analysis. When it comes to O365, we take in pretty much your we'll say five popular platforms: Microsoft Entra, Exchange Online, Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint. So we're handling those from a discovery standpoint. But once the application is configured, okay, you can run your discoveries. Right here, we're always going to show when your discoveries will last run, the last runtime, and your average runtime. You would see if there were any errors with a red LED dot that would show the errors, and then you would be able to click in and see specifically what those errors are. The reporting console. The reporting console is where we're going to spend a decent amount of time today. Within the reporting console, now this reporting console can be installed on any administrator's machine that you want to be able to run the reports from. Now, when I opened this up, you would see three folders. You're going to see My Reports, Published Reports, and the Report Library. The Report Library are all the reports that are baked into the application. Okay? Well, if I customize the report and I wanted to share it with other people who had access to this application, you can drop it within the Published Reports section. Then there's My Reports. I'm the only one who's going to see My Reports. So it's using Windows authentication at that point to determine. Now you could see I have a lot of categories within My Reports. Primarily all I did was mirror the basic categories that are within the report library. But I did mention a big feature that has come in Enterprise Reporter 3.5.2 is the Active Directory Modernization Report. A lot of what we're doing across all our products now is helping with the security of Active Directory. Active Directory is 25 years old. And in many cases, it has gone, unmaintained, and it has gotten bloated, especially from a security standpoint. So within our Active Directory modernization category, you're going to see we have subcategories: assess and remediate AD configurations, identify and remediate AD compromises, manage risks in trusted environments, identify and manage elevated access, admin accounts. Microsoft's got a very big push on Tier 0 object reporting. And we could also help out with managing risks of migrated accounts. This application is often used in pre-migrations. We're migrating to either a greenfield or we're doing a consolidation of Active Directories. Resource access, default domain group access. A lot of this is wrapped around security in Active Directory and vulnerabilities. Microsoft has also preached to a degree trying to look for indicators of exposure. IOEs is what they're really terming them, indicators of exposure. That's when they really want you to start with Tier 0 object reporting. I've chosen a couple of selected reports to look at that are common within organizations. So I've done the same thing. Under my AD reports, I've created a subcategory. I've called it AD modernization. And I've just put a handful of reports to illustrate where the application is going to. So you could see right here some of the things I've talked about: Active Directory permissions, dangerous permission delegations, the admin SD holder. And a lot of people are not aware of what even the admin SD holder is within Active Directory. It's an object in Active Directory. But the purpose of that object is to protect privileged groups. Okay, so what it's doing with that? Well, running an SD prop process. The SD prop process runs periodically every 60 minutes and checks for admin accounts that have a variable attribute value of 1. Then it enforces the permissions on that account. When you have a variable permission of 1, that means you are a privileged account within Active Directory. So that's one of the first reports that I recommend running. So if I went in here and wanted to run some sort of report like privileged user accounts. Now, every report within Enterprise Reporter has the same type of thing to it. And what I mean by that is green check marks, red X's. Red X's is an optional, it's a mandated parameter. When you see a red X, you have to put in some sort of value. When you see a green check mark, that means you don't. You can step, it's optional. Also, when you copy a report into My Reports or published reports, you can save the parameters for what you enter here. So in this case, I've just chosen privileged user accounts, and I'm going to click Run the Report. So when I go in and run this report, what are we going to see? Now, during this time, I'm also going to bring up Active Directory users and computers at this point, because I want to show from an illustration. Now, once I have this report running, I can bring it up. I'm seeing my privileged user accounts, but what are we basing this on? So I can see alerts, Aaron Rodgers, Azure, M. Bell, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, Josh Allen. Okay, so Josh Allen in this OU is showing up as a privileged account. Well, if I bring up Active Directory users and computers and I see Josh Allen right here, I should, here he is, and I bring up his group memberships because I don't recollect that person having any privileges like that. He's just showing us a domain user. Why are we identifying him as a privileged account? Well, I probably have an idea. If I go to the attribute editor right here, what am I going to see? Under admin account, I'm going to show a number 1 there. So what does that indicate? That indicates that this user at one time has been a member of a protected group some point in the past, even if they're no longer members. This value is not automatically reset when an object is removed from the privileged group. So you mean Active Directory and Enterprise Reporter are still both identifying this account as an administrator. Okay, so what are the implications to something like this? Well, quite a few things. First thing, when an object has an admin count equal to 1, inheritance is disabled, and their security settings are controlled by the admin SD holder. So if we modify security on it, and it's a deny specifically, the admin SD holder after 60 minutes is going to revert that policy, because that's the whole purpose behind being managed by the admin SD holder container. It's to prevent your administrators from getting locked out during a cybersecurity attack. Microsoft does not even recommend changing this value. They actually recommend deleting the account and creating a new one. Wow, we might consider that a significant report because Active Directory is enforcing security as if Josh Allen is an administrative account within my infrastructure, even though he's not. Well, what would be some of the other reports that enterprise is doing when it comes to that? Well, privileged domain groups and members, that would be a big thing. The admin SD holder permissions. Well, we talked about the admin SD holder container. The important job that that has in an Active Directory environment, because it is controlling the permissions for your privileged accounts. So what are considered a protected group? Well, you have the known ones, the domain admins, enterprise admins, schema admins, and there are a few others, backup operators group. But the idea behind it is if someone is a member of that group, they should never be denied permissions. So when looking at the admin SD holder container, that is responsible for controlling permissions to privileged groups. Protected groups is what Microsoft literally addresses them as. Well, what would happen if, for example, someone changed permissions on the admin SD holder container? Because here are all the default permissions. These are the built-in permit, but I can see an individual account now has full control pretty much on the admin SD holder container. So now they could actually prevent the admin SD holder container from doing what it's supposed to do by enforcing permissions on privileged accounts. So maybe I would want to know permissions on that admin SD holder container. What would be some of the other ones? You know, users golden ticket mitigation, last changed password. Okay, well, what are we looking for? Last changed password on the KRB TGT account. Well, what does Microsoft recommend from at least resetting the password on it? They're always going to recommend, in essence, resetting it twice. They'll tell you to change the password once, allowing time for replication to complete it across all DCs. Wait for the password change to replicate to all domain controls, a minimum of 10 hours, because that's the default lifetime of a Kerberos ticket. Then do a second reset. Change the password again after replication is complete. Now, the KRBTG account is primarily responsible for all Kerberos authentications within your infrastructure, so we would consider that also an important role. Well, you can see here, I have not saved any parameters as default. So here is my red X, my green check mark. If I would simply go into search and chose my red X, remember this was for a domain, it's going to show you whatever available values that you've simply discovered. Now I can click OK. I can save these parameters as default, and now I can run the report. Now, once I run this report, I can see this password has never been changed on the KRBTGT password. Wow, Microsoft recommends changing it every 12 to 18 months. That's what their recommendation are for resetting it. I've never changed it in this domain. You know what? You're probably going to find this in 90% of domains. So it's something, once again, you would want to be able to see. Now, I haven't been showing export features within the application. You could easily export these out to PDF, Excel, CSV, any of the common formats you would certainly want to hear. Kerberos, also looking for vulnerable accounts, password accounts with unchanged passwords that logged in. Dangerous permission delegation. There's always going to be that within an infrastructure. This is just a handful of what we're now offering within the AD modernization when it comes to certain things. Now, I wanted to touch upon one thing. We try and always keep these meetings down to about 20 minutes, so we're on target for that. There's a lot more reporting, of course, within Enterprise Reporter, but this presentation is not designed to cover those other platforms. But I did want to cover schedules. Now, why am I covering schedules within Enterprise Reporter? Because it works a little bit different than all other our applications within the Quest portfolio does. The Quest portfolio, you select the report, you schedule it to be delivered. Well, within Enterprise Reporter, since the product was really strong for security and compliance, and you would want a consistency of reports, maybe weekly, monthly, quarterly, you create the schedule first, okay? Then you assign the reports to that schedule. So you could see I created a category called monthly reports. Well, here are the 6 reports that I want to receive on a monthly basis. This way, I'm not going to receive 6 separate emails, each with 1 attachment. I'm going to receive 1 email with 6 attachments to it. And you could always choose to run this manually if you wanted to. Once again, spoken about Enterprise Reporter, the report modernization pack that is now within version 3.5.2. Once again, also, my name is Neil Belfour. I'm one of the solution architects here within Quest under platform management. We primarily focus mostly on the Microsoft stack. That's when you would see everything within Office 365 here. For those that have never worked with Enterprise Reporter at all, once again, reach out to us. Enterprise Reporter and 3.5.2 are available from our website. It comes with unlimited tech support during the evaluation, and the term is 30 days. I want to thank everybody for their time today, and once again, have a great day.
Thank you, Neil, for that valuable information. Please feel free to ask your questions, and we will proceed to answer them. See the Q&A. It says, could we please record the session for future reference? Just would like to let you guys know that this is being recorded. An email will be sent next week alongside with a QR survey for you to fill out, and we will appreciate your feedback. Let's wait a minute or two to see if there are any inquiries regarding the Enterprise Reporter presentation. And there seems to be a new post. It says, can we represent reports in user-friendly format like dashboards or graphics? And Neil?
Yeah, no, we can't do that. The reports themselves, if you really want to manipulate them, we do give you the ability to publish the reports to SQL reporting services. That tends to be your best option for setting up role-based access against reports and for being able to manipulate them into a more executive type of format. Now, if you wanted to go in 2 hours and create your own custom reports, or if you wanted to manipulate existing reports, you can go into our reporting editor and you would be able to certainly put in graphs, not too much from a dashboards, but it works very similar to, if anybody remembers, more something like Crystal Reports. It would give you the ability to do that type graphs, certainly.
There's a follow-up question that says, is it easy readable format instead of CSV or PDF?
Yes, a readable. Yeah, if you're taking a look at just read-only PDF, CSV, HTML, XML, I'm trying to think of any other formats that are right off the cuff. but we give you many formats. Let me take a look if I can see specifically all the formats, make it a little bit easier. Let's just sit there, come on. Okay, let me just run, and I'll show you immediately. So let's just, okay, maybe I chose the wrong report. And yeah, I just chose a very big report to run to see a list of all the formats. But pretty much most of your common formats that you would want to see would be within that list. I mentioned CSV, Excel, HTML, Word, of course, would be one of them. And now I just have it up right here. What else would be inside of this that's, something that we're not thinking of? A single file web page, a web page HTML I mentioned. Image, of course, bitmap, JPEGs, plain text files would be primarily everything that we can cover.
Thank you, Neil.
No problem.
Okay, in the meantime, until we wait for more questions, again, this will be sent via email. I also want to invite you guys to join in Minneapolis on September 30th to October the 1st to the Experts Conference, the industry's premier Microsoft security and management training event. It's just a great opportunity to exchange ideas and share experiences around groundbreaking technologies with Microsoft, as well as established solutions such as hybrid Active Directory, Microsoft Entra ID, and Microsoft 365. You can learn more and register at the link that we will be sharing in the follow-up email next week.
Yeah, I see another question here about I have 3 discoveries for 3 different regions. We scan the servers and discoveries, and I wish to run the discoveries and get the reports region-wise and not all the regions in a single report. I want 3 different reports for American, EMEA, and APAC. Is that possible? No, I really don't see that to a degree. What would be the identifying aspect? Are those different regions identified by something? Even maybe an attribute in Active Directory that we could filter upon? Are they separate domains from that standpoint? But reporting would be a little bit more limited when it comes from that standpoint, because it is taking it all inside a single database. So there would have to be some sort of parameter that appears within the database that we would have to have the ability to filter on. Maybe the region attribute or the country attribute would be populated with one of those attributes, and then we could always filter upon one of those attributes. I hope that answers the question. If you have, want a further discussion with this, I certainly would recommend reaching out to your AE, and we can get one of the architects on, either myself or somebody else, on with you and show you, what options we would have available.
Okay, let's wait a moment to see if we have a follow-up question after that. Okay, there seems to be a new post, like how to reach out to you, sir.
I would always reach out to your AE. I can sit there. I've seen your record within our CRM. I can get in touch with our AE to reach out to you, and he works usually with a dedicated architect, and they would be able to run you through those options, if that works okay with you.
Thanks. There's
No
a
problem.
follow-up question. Yeah, it says, what is best recommend to run discovery? What should be the period, daily or within 12 hours?
Yeah, I would certainly, if you're taking a look at Active Directory discoveries, those can be run daily if you wanted to, but probably not pertinent. Probably doesn't need to be. If you're taking a look at any of the other discoveries outside of Active Directory, they're much more time consuming because they're gathering much more data. So those are usually run on a quarterly basis unless there was a need to pull reports in a different time period. But Active Directory discoveries, because literally if you have 100,000 objects in Active Directory, that pales into comparison as opposed to maybe 100 million files, NTFS files that you want us to discover. The Active Directory discoveries are certainly the most efficient. Figure maybe every 1,000 objects takes maybe about 5 minutes. So it's not a huge, long discovery. So it just depends on what you need from a reporting standpoint. And then you can even filter down your discoveries to discover less information if you wanted to. If you wanted to have a discovery light and a full discovery, that can also be configured as well.
Do we have any plan for disaster recovery plan for Enterprise Reporter?
There really is not. And I think maybe that's because it's not a mission critical application, but from a discovery, from a disaster recovery plan, just from the information, I would certainly recommend the SQL information maybe sitting within a SQL cluster. So that would help with the fault tolerance of the database itself. If you set up multiple discovery servers, that would certainly help from the node standpoint, that if one node goes down, the other node would pick up the bulk of the rest of whatever's remaining from the discovery. The Enterprise Reporter server itself, the only job it is really doing at this point is, yes, it's acting as the main server, but would you believe its sole responsibility is kicking off the discoveries? It's the discovery nodes that are doing the heavy lifting. So it's really easy enough to just, if needed to be, just install another Enterprise Reporter server connected to the existing database. You would pick up on the existing nodes, be a couple of minutes. That would really be about it. Any other questions from anybody on?
Yep, let's give it a moment to see if there are any other questions. Okay, that seems to be it.
No problem.
Yes. Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you.